Hi everyone, welcome to GM1 channel. In this video, I would like to show you guys some of the interesting attacking ideas and games in the Evans Gambit. One of my students kept nagging me, asking to make a video on Evans Gambit. Well, I used to tell them like, okay, better play the Italian or the developers because Evans Gambit is a system that if black players know how to handle it, then usually it's not a big deal. Well, he still insisted on me making a video on Devon's Gambit, and finally I agreed to do this. And well, one of the things I came to realize was it's just an amazing game, amazing opening that we can play. Yeah, in spite of the line, if black players know how to handle it, then it's not a big deal. That's all true, very true. But still, I found some of the best games ever played in chess, some of the gems which we wouldn't see in other openings. Well, I was very happy to see it, and I would like to show you guys too. I hope you will also enjoy this video, these games, these ideas, just like the way I had a lot of fun. And I also thank my student for making me do this video on top of all this. Let's get started. So here we go with b4, the starting point of the Evans Gambit. Earlier I made one more video that was from black's perspective, how to handle the Evans Gambit. Well, in that I suggested bishop b4, c3, bishop a5, d4, and I suggested d6 at this point. And yeah, I still believe that to be the strongest idea. On the other hand, here e takes d4, short castle. This remains as the most important theoretical moment in this line. Now, black is left with a lot of options, and if I'm right, I think starting with d6, d3, d takes c3, knight to f6, and on top of that, the final move, knight g7 is also an option in this position for black players. So in this video, this is the part 1 video of the Evans Gambit, I would like to cover d takes c3 as well as knight f6, and we'll see the remaining ones in the part 2 video. Now, dc3 remains as the most logical, right? Like, white is sacrificing the third pawn, why not just take it? And obviously white continues to attack with queen to b3 at this point. Queen f6 remains as the most important move at this point to defend the f7 pawn. Obviously the pressure is mounting on f7. So queen f6 to defend the f7 pawn. There is a beautiful game that was played by Fischer, and yeah, against Ruben Fine, 1963 New York tournament. This is an amazing game. I also found one of the games played by Steinitz as well. White continued with knight c3 in both the games. And in the Steinitz game, black player played bishop takes c3, and after queen c3, as we can see, the pressure is mounting on the g7 pawn. In the game, black went with f6 to block this diagonal. And one more question is knight f6 at this point, which is again met with amazing ideas. Bishop a3. The point is d6 is met with e5, tearing apart the center, opening up more diagonals and files. And obviously knight e5, knight takes e5, queen takes e5 would be simply met with rook f e1, and white's attack yielded him a lot of advantage. On the other hand, knight e4 is also met with queen b2. The point is here knight e5, knight e5, queen e5. Rook e1 in this position also wins material in this position for white. And white still retains a lot of initiative for the sacrifice pawns earlier. So coming back to this f6 moment, which is what happened in the Steinitz game, white continued to attack with bishop a3, and d6 was met with bishop d5. I think a beautiful idea, increasing the pressure on the c6 knight. And once the knight moves away, all the b7, c7 pawns will come under attack, and black defended that with bishop d7. And yeah, I think rook ab1 would be a better start at this point, but nevertheless, Steinitz continued with rook f e1, And after long castle, he continued with rook ab1. And I think it's easy to understand. I think even for an untrained eye, I think, okay, B and C files are opened up and your king is there. White has basically like all the pieces out in the attack. It's not going to be easy at all. Black basically got checkmated in another few moves. Bishop e6, I think another blunder on top of all this, which was met with a quick checkmate. Yep, that's how the game ended between Stinitz and I think black player is relatively unknown player. Okay, so coming back to queen b3, I think queen e7, knight c3, basically like, yeah, bishop into c3 is what was played in the game, I mean in the Stinitz game. And I think there are other ideas as well. Queen b4 was another idea that black players played, but obviously it just looks wrong. I mean, the idea is to basically trade off the queen. Once the queens are traded off, then black's position looks much more safer. But obviously, bishop and f7 is the problem. And king d8 is met with bishop b2. And retaining this pressure, at the same time, queen takes b3, bishop takes b3. The point is, white is preparing for knight g5 next. And even after the exchange of queens, white's attack doesn't seem to be slowing down at all. And knight f6, knight g5 followed by rook d1. I think another rook to e1, e5. I mean, first of all, knight e6 is threatened. Like, I think, yeah, white will literally start throwing all the pieces towards black king there. And finally, queen e7, knight c3. The game played by Fischer. Knight f6 and knight d5. Knight takes d5, e takes d5. This opens up the line for the rooks to join in the attack. King on e8 is still stuck in the middle of the board. Black doesn't get that one tempo to castle the king. That's where everything lies. Like, if at all, like the king is castled in this position, basically black seems to be like doing extremely well after this. Like, for the sacrificed pawns, most probably white might find it very hard to prove his compensation. But right now, with the king stuck in the middle, it's going to be like really difficult for black. Knight e5, queen e5, bishop b2, queen g5, and one more interesting sacrifice here, pawn sacrifice with h4. The point is to create a deflection. White wants to go bishop g7 because only then black king can be like caught in the middle. Queen h4 was met with bishop g7 and the rook on h8 is under attack, and rook g8 was met with an amazing sacrifice here, and finally the king is coming under attack. King d8. And actually, in the game, black player didn't take bishop into e1, but nevertheless. And I think here is a fantastic finish. We want to go bishop f6, but the queen is defending it. And note down, g3 doesn't really help. g3, rook takes g7, and again, it's a pin. But yeah, queen g3, the strongest move. The point is, queen takes g3 is met with simple bishop f6, a beautiful checkmate. Once again, showcasing White's strategical idea was a tremendous success. The way White sacrificed the pawn and built the attack and opened up the lines in the e-file, I think the overall game was a fantastic effort from White. A beautiful checkmate eventually ended. So coming back to queen b3, I think more or less with all the earlier examples and ideas, queen e7 seems to be like not a great idea for black to defend f7 pawn. And queen f6 has been played by black players extensively, seems to be the strongest idea. White still continues with e5, increasing the pressure. And note down, knight e5 is definitely not helping black, because after rook e1, d6, queen b5 basically wins the bishop on a5. White is definitely dominating after bishop d7, queen a5. Again, for the sacrifice pawn, I think black has 4 pawns as of now, but obviously white has more active pieces. In an endgame, certainly black will have a good position, but in a middle game position, when all the pieces are present on the board, especially when white has such excellent piece activity, it's definitely not going to be easy for black. e5, queen g6 remains as the best move, and after knight c3, knight g7, bishop a3, short castle, and rook a d1. Well, there were a lot of games that I found black players trying to achieve some counterplay with b5, sacrificing the pawn with d6 and whatnot. But I can definitely conclude that this position seems to be like white seems to have a lot of compensation for the sacrificed pawn. And with such piece activity, I'm sure like white should be able to look for excellent attacking chances. I think this is where the lines end with queen f6, after queen b3. So e5 followed by knight c3 with natural development with bishop a3, rook ad1, rook fe1. Looks quite good. So this is where the lines end after dx c3. And the next line is another natural move from black players, which is knight f6. Well, I just found a couple of interesting games, which was basically from 1862 and the other game. Yeah, both the games have obviously have been played in 1862. Like one is from Morphy and the other one was played by Stenitz. Both were like extraordinary games, but they played the best move. To be precise, I even checked it with the latest computer engines. Computers like White's plan. White started off with bishop a3. And the game played by Morphy, I think black player played bishop b6, which was completely an unforced error. Like there was no need to really retreat the bishop here. And white's attack began here. Queen b3, threatening checkmate on f7. And black defended this. Obviously, queen e7 is not there, rook f8 is not there, the bishop is watching. So d5 to close the diagonal down. And e takes d5, knight a5 was met with rook e1. Obviously, things are not going to be easy after this. There is no way to block this because obviously, and bishop e6 is also not there because pawn takes is hanging, which is bishop e6 is what anyway he played in the game. But king d7, for example, is met with knight e5, and I think at least white should be able to win a queen here, or definitely more than that as well. I mean, probably the strongest is something like queen a4. And I'm sure like white's attack is just crashing through at this point. So rook e1, bishop e6 was played in the game, and here comes a spectacular queen sacrifice, which leads to a forced checkmate from here onwards. So d takes e6 and knight takes b3, e takes f7, king d7. It's important to not let the king run away back to c8. So bishop to e6, and king c6 is met with knight e5. And once again, the king has nowhere else to run. King b5 is the only available option in this position, which is again met with bishop c4, followed by a takes b3 and bishop b4. Was a beautiful checkmate. Checkmate in 18 moves with a queen sacrifice. This is like amazing to watch. And coming back to knight f6, bishop a3. Yeah, it makes logical sense to close this diagonal down with d6 so that black can think about castling next move. And since we have already sacrificed a couple of pawns, we have to make sure we don't let black consolidate. So white has to go e5, and d5 is met with queen b3. Well, I found some interesting ideas for black after e5. Apparently some knight e4 kind of ideas were possible, I guess. But still, what I felt was with some natural moves alone, like if black player is very well prepared, it's a different story. But with simple natural moves, like things were like getting into, I mean, black was getting into a lot of difficulties. Like for example, d5, queen b3 in this position, attacking bishop and f7. Once again, the same threat, bishop f7 followed by queen e6 leads to checkmate. And queen d7 to defend the f7 pawn is once again met with rook e1, increasing the pressure in this file. And yeah, in this game, the black player played queen f5 to defend the e5 pawn. Probably he felt it's important to defend the e5 pawn more than the f7 pawn. In fact, to be precise, bishop f7 and after king to d8, apparently position is holding reasonably well for black. Well, white's attack is still extremely strong, no doubt about that, but black is not lost, at least for the time being. So white comes out with another beautiful idea. Bishop to b5, the point is white threatens rook takes e5 immediately because of this pin in this diagonal. And black defended this rook and d5 threat with knight d7. Once again, white increases the pressure with queen d5. Now, bishop c6, queen into a5 is another threat. Apart from increasing the pressure on e5 and d4, bishop c6, queen a5 is also threatened. And black defended this with bishop b6. And yep, the final attack begins. Knight e5. Black took it, black played knight e7 in the game, which was basically met with a excellent queen sacrifice once again. Knight d7 followed by knight f6. And the next move is king b8 and bishop e7 check. Well, I think most of the games that I showed you, most of the ideas that we saw in this video, like a lot of attack, especially queen sacrifices, were like quite common. Yeah, it really brought me a lot of happiness when I saw these games, because with the modern openings and modern trend, we don't come across such a great attacking ideas, especially in the early stage of the game. Well, I think this gives us some clarity with short castle and what happens after black goes d takes c3 and knight f6. In the part 2 video, I'll cover knight g e7, and this is one, and the second option is pawn to d3, and at last the final option, that is pawn to d6. So I'll see you all in the next video then. Thank you everyone.